Cup of Nations qualifiers. So definitely, well, I have the two. I don't know how to describe them, but Peter and Blessing, they are with me in the studio, and definitely we are here to talk about everything that definitely is emanating from the world of sport. We talk about the Shanghai Masters, also the Wuhan Open, where we have Amanda Nisimova also making it into the next round with a straight set victory. And then we talk about some bits of interesting updates also that we have there in the world of sports. But we have a big talking point today. Lewis Hamilton of that's the Mercedes there in the world of Formula One. He has come out to talk about, bringing the Formula One Grand Prix to the African scene. And in his words, he said we can't be adding races in other locations and continuing to ignore Africa. So the question now is, what does Africa have to actually host that's the Formula One Grand Prix? Yes, we've seen it in so many regions. We've seen it in so many parts of the world. But outside that, in Africa, have we seen it? No, we haven't seen a Formula One race there in Africa. So definitely, I will start straight up from that with Blessing and Peter, who are with me in the studio this lovely afternoon. So definitely, I say to, let me start straight from my left. Good afternoon. Blessing.
Good afternoon, Peter. Good afternoon, similarly, doing this in flesh for the first time in a couple weeks. But yeah, I'm happy to be back here again on the wet, cold Tuesday afternoon right here in the city of Ibadan. Great to be here.
Peter also is joining me in the studio. Good afternoon, Peter.
It's a pleasure to be here, Timilane. And like Blessing said, we have to do this live this afternoon. And it's good you're starting from your left hand, and I'm on the right. And so if you understand what left means, then you know. But if you don't, you don't.
All right. We have lots of talking points today. But let's start straight from the Super Eagles of Nigeria, where we have players in camp. We have 9 players in camp of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Sterling Wabali and Amas Obasioge were the early birds in camp yesterday. There in Benjamin Taminu, Samuel Chukwueze, Victor Boniface, 𝐷𝐿 𝐒𝐿𝐒𝐷𝐃, Fesal Dele Bashiru, Frank Oyeka, and Wilfred Ndidi. They also joined up in the players in camp of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But since the list got released on Saturday, we've not been able to talk about the players invited into the leagues. We are maybe 8, 7, 6 games into the season. But how have these players fared in their respective leagues? And how deserving are they to be in the folds of the Super Eagles of Nigeria? So once again, let me quickly run through the list of players in the folds of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. We have Stanley Wabali, Maduka Okoye, Amasa Basioge, defenders Captain William Trostekong, brighter side Samuel Bruno Yemechi, Shimlo Guajayi, Calvin Basiola Oluwaina, Benjamin Taminu, and midfielders we have Wilfred Ndidi, 𝐷𝐿 𝐒𝐿𝐒𝐿𝐒𝐿, Alassane Yusuf, Fesal Dele Bashiru, Frank Oyeka, Alexander Iwobi, Samuel Chukwueze, Chidera Ejuke, Ademola Lookman, Kelechi Iheanacho, Victor Boniface, Moses Simon, and Taiwo Awoniyi. These are the players in the folds of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So now, we saw the statement from Austin Eguavon stating his reason for including Kelechi Iheanacho in the folds of the Super Eagles. I decided to include Kelechi Iheanacho of Sevilla when it became clear Victor Osimhen would not be fit in time. I looked at both Cyril Dessers and Tolu Arokodare, but opted for Kelechi this time because he is the more experienced striker. That's coming from the interim head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. For Chidera Ejuke, making a return into the folds of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. We also have actually Dessers, who definitely, on the other hand, he is one of the best attackers in which the Super Eagles have at this point. The most goals and assists when we talk about their leagues, he alongside Ademola Lookman and Josh Maja, they are locked on 8. But Cyril Dessers has been, and Josh Maja, they've been overlooked by Austin Eguavon and the Nigeria Football Federation. And the statement by Austin Eguavon is that a statement of what it truly is in inviting Kelechi Iheanacho into the folds of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Peter.
When I also saw that statement, read that statement, so the question that came to mind is it based on form? Is it based on experience? Which one comes first? For me, I think the issue of form should come first. How fit, what form is Kelechi Iheanacho, senior man, the man who likes to share soap? But he's not been getting it. He's not been sharing those soap. It's not been happening for him in Seville. You know, myself and Blessing were having this chat before came into the studio. She saw the game on Sunday. I also did. That's the big game in the city of Seville. Seville and Real Betis. He never played a single minute of that game. That was the biggest game in Spain over the weekend. I know you say Football Club Barcelona. You call it about Real Madrid. But in Spain, that is the biggest game. And Kelechi Iheanacho did not play in that game. What he was busy doing was jumping from the touchline back to his seat. And he never kicked the ball in that game.
Someone has to be hyped for the teammate.
He never, senior man that he is. He has never gotten to that stride of Kelechi Iheanacho that would come into a side. And if he's not coming from the bench to score, if he's on the pitch, he's making the difference. So if the head coach says for him is Kelechi Iheanacho, there are more to it. It's not about the experience now. It's about the players who are on form. We're going to play a Nations Cup qualifier. Yes, we began on a good note. 4 points from 2 games. But we need our players to hit the ground running. Now, you talk about Cyril Dessers. Plays week in, week out for Rangers. In the starting 11s for the club side, they won over the weekend. It's been impressive for that side. But maybe you say in terms of age, yes, maybe I agree with you. But in terms of form, for me, Kelechi is a no-no. But like I used to say, let's see what happens. If the result don't come in these 2 header against Libya, then I'll come here and talk about Kelechi Iheanacho that it's got no reason to be in that team. And also, look at it from the other hand. Will Kelechi Iheanacho start any of the 2 games against Libya? I don't know if you know.
Well, will Kelechi Iheanacho? That is still a question that will be answered on the field of play.
Can I quickly add to that? You know what Peter has said. You know, I recall on Friday Friday you were asking me, Peter, about if I had seen the list as you were all searching, and I recall that I said that that one thing we should all know is that all of the players that have been invited to camp already have their invites. Their clubs have been informed, and perhaps even their flight ticket had been booked before then. I think that's what we saw. And maybe the reason why we didn't see the list on time is, you know, just to forestall things like this, and, you know, the fans asking questions and wondering why certain players were called into the team, into the camp and wearing code. Yeah, I do agree with everything you said about Kelechi Iheanacho. He's a man that is not in form at the moment, and maybe he could have gone with someone who is in form. However, Eguavon's explanation about it's akin to saying the devil you know is better than the angel you do not know, because I have a feeling he's worked with him before, so he probably to an extent would understand how it would fit into whatever he plans to do with his team. So maybe that explains why he came out to say that. Well, should he probably have said it, you know, maybe in a slightly better way, perhaps. But again, we have not really seen Tolu Arokodare we've not seen him play for the Super Eagles before. Yeah. And yes, I do agree. If you are going to invite new legs into the team, it is with games like this. No disrespect to Libya. I do not think that team would, you know, pose a bit, you know, too much problem for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But yeah, like you said, even after the game and we are not able to get results, then maybe we should start questioning him and his rationale behind, you know, inviting Iheanacho.
You know, one other thing I also said to you, sorry, Sammy, was that if it's about understanding off the pitch, then Kelechi fits into the bill. And I remember saying that you can't have Kelechi and Victor Boniface off the pitch. The way they're going to band, the way they're going to interact will be different from Kelechi and Cyril Dessers. So maybe for that. But me saying it's about form, it's not about experience, it's not about paddy, it's about form. But hey, it is what it is. Kelechi Iheanacho, you have it.
Well, when we talk about Kelechi Iheanacho, I think he's not the only one who actually has been invited into the Super Eagles, without that proper football game this season. We also have Taiwo Awoniyi that's in that list of players being invited, and we can tell that Samuel Chukwueze has been in and out of AC Milan's team. But then another man I want to talk about is Chidera Ejuke, whom of course tops the most dribbles completed there in the Spanish La Liga and maybe in Europe top 5 leagues, but been invited into the Super Eagles of Nigeria after a long while. What will Chidera Ejuke bring
I guess,
to the fold of the Super Eagles?
First off, I doubt that he's going to be starting any of those games. I doubt that maybe he comes in as a substitute, maybe in the second leg or something, the second game we are playing, because I'm thinking, does he bench, what's the name of this man in form right now? Demola Lookman, or does he bench Moses Simon on the other side? Absolutely not. And yes, indeed, you talked about him being one with the most dribbles so far in the Spanish La Liga this season, completed take-ons and what have you. But if you dig deeper a little bit into his stats, into his numbers, how did I even know? I mean, I was doing a bit of research before that, that game against Real Betis over the weekend, and I found out myself his numbers actually aren't very good. He's got, I think, a goal, either a goal or an assist to his name so far this season.
Yeah, he's got a goal.
A goal, yeah.
So I think that was their comeback victory 2 weeks ago.
Real Betis, that the partnership that he has with 𝐷𝐿𝐒𝐿,
The Belgian.
The Belgium is actually very good. Like, it's almost like they understand each other very well. He knows where to put the ball into, for 𝐷𝐿𝐒𝐿 to run into space to attack, which is very good. Now, that's perhaps an environment he's going to have to create for himself with the Super Eagles, which I don't know how many training sessions he's going to have to, have that to be able to create that. So I doubt that he's going to be starting. But yeah, it's actually very good that he's back into the fold of Super Eagles because, like you said, we want to have players who are in form, quote unquote, however relative form might be to you, but players that are in form at that moment or are getting playing time regularly with their team. So yes, but I don't think it's going to be starting any of those games, or maybe as a substitute. But yeah, let's see.
With 9 players in the camp of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, we are expected to take on Libya later on Friday by 5 p.m. at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium, Uyo. Well, let's take a listen to the words of Coach Austin Eguavoen speaking about the preparation of the players.
Yes, they are down right now. Doesn't mean that they can't rise because they have a couple of games to play. But, they are aware, we are aware, our position and their position. And they will come here and fight. But we will also try forget about the past games. Now we're looking ahead to Libya's game. Not even an away game. Our focus right now is the game in front of us. And the boys are ready. And we're going to give Libya a tough fight. We will fight for for those 3 points. Every second counts. And we know what it means to get the job done and over with as quickly as possible. It's going to be tough, but I think at the end of the day, with the boys that we have in the spirit, and nobody's injured right now, they will deliver.
All right, there we listen to the voice of Austin Eguavoen, trusting the boys to deliver, even though, they had their first training session today, and not all players are in the camp of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. On Friday, I think we made this, we had this conversation also. Players are not coming to camp early, despite us seeing it in the last international window. Most of them came early, but this time around, faults are from the Nigeria Football Federation and maybe Austin Eguavoen himself has placed the team in such a difficult position. But let's move away from that's the Super Eagles of Nigeria and quickly to club football. In the Nigeria Premier Football League this morning, Peter played, he had Yemi Olariwaju's voice on the show where he discussed about what is next for Enyimba and how they tend
after the draw.
How they tend to go further this season. Well, mind you, their next game is against the Shooting Stars here in Ibadan. But now, he said these are a new set of players, 21 players also he is working with. And that brought to me the question of continuity in Nigeria Premier Football League. How do we continue? That's Shooting Stars head coach 𝐷𝐿𝐒 𝐿𝐒. He made mention of that this season also after we played out that goalless draw against Plateau United. He said that he has new players in his fold and there is no synergy yet. They are trying to build the momentum and to go further till the end of the season. I think this has been the same story we see every season within folds of the Nigeria Premier Football League clubs in Nigerian football.
You're not going to stop having such story, to be very, very sincere with you, because we have teams who, when they get players, you are getting as much as 11, 12, 13, 15. Sometimes some teams get 22 players at a go, and then you start trying to play each one of them to see what fits into what. You have players who sign contracts of 1 year. In terms of signing agreements to stay 1 year, and then once they're done with 1 year, they're looking forward to the next hunting ground, if I should put it that way. So that's a situation you're going to always have when it comes to the NPFL. I don't know how established the team may be. I think the team that has perhaps tried a little bit not to go that route entirely is Remo Stars, because I don't hear stories of them signing as much as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players in the season. But yeah, you get that with many other teams. So it's always something you're going to have until we have a proper system where you are able to sign players onto like 2-3 years contract deal, and then when they are leaving, you are transparent about, okay, we have reached an agreement with XYZ club to get this player for XYZ amount of money for XYZ number of years in terms of contracts. When we get to that stage, in terms of handling our transfer business, then maybe we'll talk about having teams who are able to say, you know what, we had 22 players in total last season, and now all we have just brought in is, and all we have just changed in terms of personnel is just 3 players. We are keeping the core of the team that we have. Shouldn't, like you mentioned, we shouldn't start with Gumbote too. If you remember last season, the first half of the season, it was very, very poor run for him until the second half when, things started, gelling, and things started looking much like, looking in place. And then he was saying, first half we weren't really synchronized. We didn't really understand the style we're playing until the second half of the season where they found themselves and they were able to go on a very good run. So it's the story you're not going to stop hearing about in the NPFL until we have a proper system where people sign valid documents, and not just 1 year document, you're signing 2-3 years document, which means that you are able to have rights over these players who have committed their immediate future to you.
This is the same league that you have players who go on a wall, and then the club side will come away and be saying, we're looking for Kenny ran, and we're still searching for him. He left the club side without doing this, and then the next thing you hear is that player is somewhere playing in Africa or in Europe, and then you begin to question, how did he get his international transfer certificate? Who helped
ITC,
him?
exactly.
Who processed it for him?
Peter, to shock you, players, they even owe their ITC these days. They don't release it to clubs.
I've had that many years ago, that the agent and the players, they have the ITC with them. Or they have somebody at the NFF office that will help them proceed and process it, and they will move. The other thing that I also need to remind Benga and the fans is that they will say almost last year, they almost got a continental ticket last year. And then they'll look back, like Blessing said, and those results weren't good. This time you play against Enyimba of Aba on Sunday. Yemi have said he's got 21 players. With Yemi's excuse, he has gathered that team. That excuse is gone now for Yemi. Yemi, you must perform now, because you have shown us that even with little time and these players you say they are new players, see where Enyimba are. For Shooting Stars, they have to hit the ground running. It's none of my business that you sign 15 players.
That's not our business.
The fans don't care. They don't want to know.
That's an excuse.
You gave them something close to continental football last season, and then you hear it say story. If you don't beat him on Sunday, don't tell them because you signed 16 players and you don't have time to jail. People don't care. They don't want to listen. They want results.
Who they else on Sunday?
Shooting Stars
there.
But it's not going to be under the floodlights. Okay. That will be by 4 p.m.
It's good. It's not on that.
If you go to that light, I will come here again and say there's no point playing those MPFL games under the light. We have no business doing that.
That is darkness.
It's just darkness.
Oh, sorry. Headlamp.
Darkness. People who are old enough, are grandmas and grandpas, watch European football, and they ask you questions. Is this afternoon or night? You say this is night, grandpa, and they say this looks like afternoon. We should have that also. If we're not prepared for that, if we're not ready for that, play these games 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. We are fine. Don't give us game. Enyimba began game on Sunday, ended on Monday morning. Come on, stop.
Well, let's move on from Nigerian football and quickly go straight to the world of Formula One, where he has made a plea for the sport to visit Africa for a Grand Prix in the future. World Formula One returns with the United States Grand Prix in Austin, and definitely we know that Lewis Hamilton, who has visited Morocco, South Africa, Senegal, Benin, Mozambique, and Madagascar. And this man, the Briton, he has come out to rally or maybe make a plea to the FIA, that's the Formula One body, that they should consider Africa for one of its races in a calendar year. So now I started the program by asking, what do we have to host a Formula One event, a Formula One race?
What does it require to host a Formula One race? Bullet points in my head right now that I could practically write a seminar report about it, but some of the questions I'm asking is, when some of these big sporting agencies or organizations, as the case may be, decide want to spread tentacles, one of the things they are thinking to themselves is, what is there for us? What are we gaining there? And part of the things that organizations like this gain is opening up new grounds to get new followers, to get new fans in some of these regions, especially regions where the sport is not very well known. There's something called internationalization. It's quite different from globalization. If you go find out, I mean, you're trying to expand the tentacles of your business, which means that in an area where there are no people do not have so much interest in that sport, you are trying to go there. And one of the things they do is, first and foremost, they try to find one person, at least one or two people who are actually interested in the sport, get them to build them up, and then use them as influencers in those regions. And then sometimes they go back to those regions, they go into those regions, start building things like academy, start running a very typical example is the NBA. NBA decided they wanted to spread tentacles. They came into South Africa. They are right here in Nigeria. They've got NBA Africa. They've got an NBA academy somewhere in Rwanda where there are players from there, athletes from there, who get into or try to get into schools in the US and eventually get drafted into the NBA. That is an example of internationalization. Now, are there countries in Africa who can actually host successfully a Formula One race? Yes, two nations come to mind: South Africa and maybe Rwanda. Rwanda, because Rwanda has shown intentionality in trying to expand sports, as a whole in their country.
Well, recently, the Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali, he held a meeting with representatives of Rwanda.
Domenicali. So yes, so that's just to show you that there are certain nations that can actually get that done. But first and foremost, you have to ask what's the interest rate of Formula One in Africa? How many Africans actually like Formula One? I saw, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I stumbled across something on Instagram about a certain Nigerian, of course, who is not born and bred in Nigeria, who has an interest in Formula One and is being taken through the paces in the Formula One Academy and what have you. I think it's probably in the UK right now. It's been going to some of these junior races and all of those things. Now, that's how it starts. That's where it starts from. Once that youngster is able to get some level of experience, now they're going to use him as influencers to start trying to influence people back home in Africa, to get their love for the sport. So there's a lot for for these organizations to get. However, where is the interest coming from?
Well, I think before we came on board, we had a long conversation about sport development in Africa and how we can do with it. But now, for Rwanda, they are looking to increase tourism in the country in recent years, and they are looking to promote that with sport. But then, when we talk about, you made mention of Rwanda, then there is a South Africa, whom of course I think they've hosted a Formula One race in the year 1993, and it has not returned since then. That's the South African Grand Prix in Yalami, and it has not returned since then. There are thoughts of Egypt and Morocco also came to mind. But before we came on board, I think Peter was saying that Morocco, all they are after now is just football, and they want to get that football off at their neck, hosting that a global showpiece.
Yeah, I did, and I said that for the Moroccans, they've been looking to host the biggest football events in the world as the World Cup since '96. The Germans got it in '96. They were hoping that 2010 they will host it. South Africans got it, and since then they've been finding ways. Of course, remember that they're trying to do a joint host with Portugal and Spain. We'll wait to see what happened. But you see, for me, Formula One, yes, good to have it. Good that Lewis Hamilton is trying to make a case for us to have Formula One on these parts of the world. There's Formula One in everywhere you go. There's Formula One in Europe. There's Formula One in Asia. There's Formula One in South America. There's Formula One in North America. But hey, the question is, why not Africa? And one question Blessing was trying to say, or one of the things he was trying to say, is that there's so many reasons. I've got a few of them here. The facilities have to be there. Government have to have the willingness to say, because there's nothing you want to do without government. South Africa wants to host the World Cup. We want to host the World Cup. Government must have their hand in it. They must give the go-ahead to the Ministry for Youth and Sports, and of course the other ministries, the other associations in charge of that sport. So for me, I think that we are not there yet. I was also speaking about hosting the WTAs, hosting the ATPs. Yeah. We have personalities in tennis. Yeah. There was a time we had Kevin Anderson, who was doing well on the global stage in terms of tennis. Now there's Hans Jebois doing well in the WTA, but never has it done on the WTA or the ATP to say, let's find a way to get tennis at that stage to the continent. And so for me, the question will still be there. We've seen basketball, we've seen football, and for the South Africans, like we said the other time, they've hosted major tournaments. They've hosted the Cricket World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, Football World Cup.